Welcome to the Zachrilege cast, Delissa McAdoo. How are you doing tonight?
Fantastic. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for having me, Zach.
So, how did you get the nickname Her Majesty?
Your Majesty. I work with
Your
a lot
Majesty.
of senior citizens, and I used to do a lot of things with them. And one of my seniors, Mr. Davy, he told me this is when I was in the ministry, that one day I was going to be speaking into crowds of people, and he said they're going to respond to you by being Your Majesty. So that's where I got that. I do a lot of public speaking at different venues. A lot of people have a hard time pronouncing my name. So as a joke, I just tell everybody to call me Your Majesty, and they do call me Your Majesty when I go to these venues. So, but my government name is Delissa McAdoo.
Well, how did you initially meet up with Mandisa Thomas and get to speak at a Black Nonbelievers gathering?
Well, actually, about 5 years ago or something, I was going through this transition of figuring out was my religion that I had been with all of my life, a half a century or better, not giving my age out. And come to find out that what I was believing and truly believing wasn't true. So I did a whole lot of investigation, and I come up with on YouTube has everything, the internet has everything, and then I bumped into meetups for non-believers, and this whole happened to run into Black Nonbelievers. It was local, so I joined it, went to a couple of venues, and then from there went on a cruise, and so that's just my take with meeting up with Mandisa and Black Nonbelievers.
Well, let's go back just a little bit. So, what was your religious background growing up?
Christianity, Pentecostal, apostolic, in the church all my life. When we were kids, my parents would send us to church. It's 7 kids, and they didn't go to church, but on Sundays, the church bus would pick us up, and the kids would go to church. And I think that was just their break from getting away from the kids. And so we would go religiously early in the morning time. I can remember the church bus would pick us up at 7 a.m. And sometimes we would not get home till midnight or late at night. We had several services, tired, just there all day long. I mean, looking back on it, I think it should have been child abuse. And the things that we saw in the church was scary. I know my sisters and my brothers that, speaking in tongues and the shouting and all that fanfare and stuff. That's what I was brought up in. And once I become an adult, I continued, and a lot of my brothers and sisters did not continue to go to church as regular as I did. But throughout my life, college and grad school and as adult, I continued into the church. Involved in every type of ministry that possible, except for the choir and ushering. But did those ministries, finance ministry, whatever ministry, whatever outreach there was, I was involved with the church. Then I went to several seminary schools and Bible Institute. And actually, when I moved to Georgia, I've been in Georgia now about 14 years, I actually helped start a church, a Triumph Leadership Conference here in Peachtree City. Got that church up and going and just been involved. And then all of a sudden, my world turns around, where this is not what it is. As a matter of fact, what come with the finance ministry, and the reason why I'm here this evening and why you invited me is that one of the things I used to do with the ministry, the finance ministry, is I used to get pastors from different churches would call me to do presentations on the importance of tithing. I would do a PowerPoint presentations. They would send me here, there, and there, do my presentation and teach on tithing and PowerPoint. We go through it, and they would put me up in hotels and all those types of things. And that's what I did. And I actually believe that tithing was in the Bible. It's what God ordained us to do, and that's what I did. And all of a sudden, I'm on YouTube and typing in, have this thing with Teddy Pendergrass, my favorite singer of all time. But anyway, I was on YouTube with my saved, sanctified self and typed in, Teddy Pendergrass, and all of a sudden there was this video that says tithing is a lie. And then I clicked on some more and more, and the more I got into it, I kept on listening to other videos and more. Then couldn't find out there is nothing in the Bible that says you're supposed to give your money. Nowhere. And I bought books and a whole lot of literature, and it's not in there. I actually went through the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, pulled out all the scriptures on tithing, on offerings, and there's nowhere in the Bible that states that you're supposed to give your money. And I was distraught. I mean, I was literally distraught because I had been teaching a lie. I had been teaching this to seniors, teaching it to single moms, getting their money, and then kind of find out. And then I just really had an emotional breakdown because I had been lying to people and taking money from these groups of people.
Well, what gave you your initial, I guess, doubts? Because it doesn't sound like you just saw a YouTube video and then changed your mind. Like, I feel like you probably had those doubts before you got there.
Yeah, there was something in the back when you with anybody with religion, and not just me, even people who are believers. You're go up this religious stuff, and the stuff just doesn't make sense. The Noah Ark thing doesn't make sense. The talking snakes doesn't make any sense. All those stories in the Bible, a lot of stories about just don't make any sense. But you're told over and over and over, don't question God, and you got to believe it. I have a science background. I'm a chemist for trade, a master's in chemistry and science and physics and all that kind of stuff. And when you start to go through this stuff, it just doesn't make any sense. But you're told not to question it. So I didn't question it. I said, something is wrong with me. You've got millions and billions of Christians. So it just had to be me. So I just went with the program of, okay, this is true. So I think everybody has that in the back of their mind with any religion that, no, this stuff doesn't make any sense. So that's why.
But when you discovered, because you were actually in the finance side of the church, did you take your findings to the pastors, and what was it like when you said, hey, by the way, this isn't in the Bible?
Okay. What had happened in that area is that after I found out and checked out books, and I actually went to the Bible and got scriptures and all these things explaining what that word tithing was, I called over to my home, and I invited six pastors to my house, and they knew what they were coming over here. I said, we're going to talk about tithing, and I just want you guys to explain to me why we're teaching tithing. So they came over, we went scripture to scripture through the Bible, and at the end of it, the summation was, two of them at the same time says, how are we going to get our money? That was the conclusion of that. So when those two said that to me, something clicked in me and said, hey, listen, they knew this was a lie from the get-go, but they were just out to get money. And so I let you guys get out of my house, blah, blah, blah. And it was just a lie. And I'm not saying that all pastors, and most pastors don't know it because people don't read their Bibles. But most pastors do not know that there is no scriptures nowhere in the Bible that says that you're supposed to take money. Now, there are some that do. There's, these mega pastors who's taking that money. They can go in, they can quote Malachi and all these things without even using it. Some pastors are gifted where they can just take a scripture out of the Bible and go from here to A to Z, not open up their Bible. So for whatever reason, they have to know that if you're taking Malachi 3, that's the one everyone uses. They do the third chapter, but they don't teach the first chapter and the second chapter. And so they skip over stuff because, frankly, church is a business. They're in business to make money. And so if people stop giving money, there's no more churches. So they got to keep up with the lie. You know, they've got to feed themselves, their family. If you're 40 something years old and you've been in the church all your life, you're not going to go out there and get a job. So they got to keep up the facade of, you know, taking money from people.
Well, the churches you worked with, they weren't prosperity gospel churches, right?
I was in the prosperity gospel for a while, well, a good majority of my life. And yes, we taught, you know, prosperity, giving your 10% and God's going to bless you. That's what I used to teach. Give your 10%. If you did not, then you'll be cursed with a curse. And I believe that myself. I will always give 10% of my income. I can remember one year I actually gave about $13,000 between two churches in 1 year. And that's nothing compared to a lot of my friends and so forth and so on, people who are in the church, because I used to be a part of finance ministry and I would count the money. And there were members of the church that would get $18,000 a year, $20,000 every year with the tithing. So at my particular, one of the churches I belong to, I would count money on the second Sunday. On the second Sunday, we would take anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 for that day.
So, and how many parishioners were there?
I guess about 3,000. So we have two services, and that was easily $40,000 that we bring in that day.
Do you ever, like, you know, pass the plate and then you're kind of like, hey, it's a little light this week, people, I can tell.
Well, no, we would just be back in the back counting the money. When you was counting money, you didn't attend the service, because counting $40,000 took a long time. If the service lasts 2.5 hours, it took every bit of 3.5 hours to count that money, because we had, you know, you counted and somebody else counted, and you got to make sure that everything added up. So it took a while to count that money. So, but no, we were not actually in the sanctuary when we counted the money.
Well, do you think that it was your Pentecostal upbringing and the fact that you're at church for like the entire day on Sunday that made you more prone to be kind of volunteering for churches and doing this work, that, you know, you're working for the Lord, right?
Right. The Black church is, I don't know if people haven't experienced the Black church, but I tell everybody, go experience the Black church, because there's a lot there. It's entertainment. You've got the great speakers, you've got the music, the choir, you got the different types of, you got the miming going on, you got your dancers, you got the children doing stuff, and it's there for entertainment. And you've worked 5 days, 6 days a week, and when you go to church on that Sunday, whatever, it's relief. You get entertained, you get a good word, encouragement, what have you. So it's a great place to be. And I understand why people like going to church. You know, for me, when I was working in corporate in the lab, I mean, I wore an ugly lab coat to work every day. And then on Sunday, I got to dress up and be like a lady. So, you know, so it's just a place to escape for, you know, from all the other stuff that you're doing the other 6 days of the week.
Yeah, but so about how long have you been a non-believer, or do you remember like an exact time where like it came to you like, okay, I don't believe?
So I was a believer. Then for a little while, I called myself agnostic, meaning I just don't know. And then I just straight out, I'm just going to be an atheist. I don't even call myself a non-believer. I just say atheist. I go ahead and just say I'm an atheist. It took me, after that day when I was, on the internet and looking at Teddy Pendergrass, it took me about 3.5, 4 years before I actually did the homework, investigated, researched. The more I researched, the more I found out that this stuff is a lie. So it took me about 3.5 years before I finally just say, listen, I'm tired. But the more I look, there's nothing else I can look for. So, and then I had a lot of, training and stuff from, for example, Dr. Ray Higgins and Jeremiah Camara. There's a whole lot of information out there. Dan Barker. I mean, there's just so much out there that you can get, and you can just go into it. I just did not take one person's word. I mean, I really dug into this deeply to make sure that I'm getting out of something, because I believe in heaven and hell, and I want to make sure that if I'm making this change, I'm not going to hell. And I think that's what a lot of people who are into religion, why it takes them so long to get out of it. They're just trying to make sure that, you know, I'm not going to go to hell. So that was the fear factor right there for me for a while. You know, I don't want to get out of this. I may go to hell. So that's where we ended up with. But it took me a while. It did take me a while.
You said that YouTube was a big factor. So you watched a lot of videos, and
there's just so much information out there on YouTube with different, I mean, just so much. I mean, it's just, we're in the age of information. And there, to me, there's no reason why people cannot. I always tell people there's no reason why for you to be dumb. When I was growing up, I used to have to walk to the library several miles. And now all you got to do is use your device, your phone, your computer, and you can bring all that information to you. So, yeah, I mean, very instrumental with YouTube and Google and this. And then when you do those things, they're going to give you information, more books to, you know, more information, more historical stuff, facts. Even if one thing that most people know about Christians or people that's religious per se, they don't read their books. They don't read their Bibles. They don't read it. And if you actually read the Bible, that's the best, quickest way to become a non-believer, an atheist, is to actually read your Bible. But most people don't read their Bibles. Yeah, and the Bible actually tells you in Galatians 4th chapter, about the 20th verse, that all this stuff is made up. It's an allegory. It did not exist.
Yeah, it's interesting that like the original people who were Christians and Jews didn't believe the story, and Jewish people don't, for the most part, don't believe it's literal. But for Christianity, and it almost seems like the literal part is like the last century, which is weird because we have this like information boom, but at the same time, people are like, no, it's literal, and there's like industries and billions of dollars put toward like creationists, which is kind of amazing. But for you, was it harder to like just come to the realization that you didn't believe, or is it harder to actually leave the church, because it had to have been a very important part of your life, because it's been in your life since you've been alive?
Very hard. I mean, I've got my support group. I've got friends. We vacationed together. We went to movies together. That was my support group. And to leave that, you just feel empty. It's like a divorce, a bad divorce, you know, and you're used to its customs. You're used to doing this, and all of a sudden your world is turned upside down. It was very difficult. As a matter of fact, when I made up my mind to get out of the church, I would sneak back just because I didn't have anything to do on Sundays. What did I do with my time on Sundays? I would go, just visit different churches just to see, whatever. It's very hard to leave a cult, and religion is nothing but a cult. And when I say cult, I don't mean that in a negative way. Is that if you look at the word cult come from the word culture. And by me being born in the United States, the religion of the United States is Christianity for the majority of the people. Had I been born in Pakistan, there's 90% chance, 99% chance I would have been Muslim, or either practice of Islam, or if I was in Northern Europe or something, I would be an atheist. So people aren't born Christians or Muslims or Jews or what have you. They're indoctrinated into the belief.
Well, let's talk a little more about tithing, since you did that talk of the Black Nonbelievers meeting, and I want to share all the goodness that I heard with the audience. So you had a number with about how much is tithed on a weekly basis. What is that number?
Okay, I did some more research because I had heard that number. Originally, they said from about the early 80s until present day, the Black church has given, if you take the numbers out, will have given $250 million every 7 days. Okay, I did some numbers today, and just for the Black church, last year, the Black church contributed, Black folks with Black church, about $430 million last year. That's $333 million a month, which equates to $7.7 million a week. And when I'm being very pragmatic, there's only about 45 million Blacks or African Americans in the United States. And we are giving $33 million to the Black church each week. And if you study history and the plight of African Americans living in this country, we have not moved when we talk about finances since, slavery. When Lincoln ended slavery, the eve of 1865, Black folks made up 0.5%, less than 0.5% of the economy in this country. Today, 138 years later, we're still at that same place. We have not moved. As a matter of fact, we've gotten worse off, because back in, before integration, we owned stuff. We owned our own, taxi cabs and laundromats and land, and we're farmers and homes and just, businesses per se. And now we don't own that. And we are taking our money and we're not advancing at all. You take the history of the Jews who came to this country. They had some of this, not, slavery, but, they were discriminated against and so forth. So what they did, they looked at, and there's a book called How the Jews Conquered Hollywood. And they focused on controlling Hollywood. And today they control Hollywood and the banks. And what they did is they invested back into their community. Unlike African Americans, every penny we get does not go back into the Black community. It goes to other communities. And we're being pimped. And we don't know that we're being pimped. We're being pimped by the church. We've been pimped by businesses. We just basically are not growing economically. There's a passage of scripture in Ecclesiastes. If you just, I don't believe any of that stuff is true. It's all made up. But the Bible has some good teaching lessons in it. And in the book of Ecclesiastes, there's a story about this town that needed some advice. They were having some hardships and troubles. And they talked to everybody, but there was this one person in there who was very poor. And he had lots of wisdom, smart, could have helped that town. But because this person was poor, they did not listen to him. And I equate this back with the Black experience in this country. They don't listen to Black folks because we're not putting into the money. We do not contribute or anything to the money because they don't listen. The dollar talks is big money in this country. And they just don't listen to you unless you have a dollar. I mean, that's just the way it is. So everybody is taking from us and we're not getting anything back in return as far as capitalism and so forth and so on. In this country, it's a crime to be poor. People look down on you. I mean, from, everyone. I work with senior citizens and they're taking, my average income for my senior Social Security check is about between $850 and $900. And they're being used and abused from the church, from the doctors, the healthcare. Everybody is using them because they don't have any support. And when you're poor, you can be thrown away and people can take you. And I say that with the church because I work with the seniors. I know their income. I'm talking about poverty. I did not know poverty existed until I started the industry, the healthcare industry with Medicare. I didn't know that type of poverty existed in the United States. And when we talk about poverty, I mean, I live in Metro Atlanta, and I'm not saying going down to rural South of these areas. I'm talking about right in my backyard, 15 miles from here. There's so many pockets of poverty. And the church is taking money from the majority of the Black church. 7% or better of the church is senior citizens and single moms. And they're supporting the church financially. They're giving their tithes and their offering and not saving anything for themselves, their kids' education, or nothing. And so when they go to retire, they have nothing to show for it. I mean, I have seniors calling me not too long ago, was worried about how she's going to get some shoes for the pastor's anniversary. I mean, literally crying. And we need to get past to this. And we need to, they're trying to figure out, you know, with the ministry, how we're going to get food for, you know, to feed the people after they have the program. And that's just the mentality we have, because people actually think that by supporting the church, that they're going to be blessed. If they don't do that, then they're not blessed. And what really upsets me, Zach, is that most of these churches, again, are senior citizens, and they're single moms. And most of the people who preach are men. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we've got women and senior citizens who are supporting these men, paying their mortgages, their cars, and all these, you know, other things. And these moms and these seniors, you know, they're the ones that's suffering while they're benefiting. And I have a problem with that. You know, I take senior citizens out each month, and there's no way that I would take money from a senior. I wouldn't do that. But you have grown men in the church that's taking money from grandma, from a single mom who's struggling, and they have no problem with that. And I try to go out and say, listen, if you got somebody in the church, go and stop that mess. Stop your mom, your grandma, you know, from giving to the church. They need that money. They did a study that said for the African-American woman, what they've got saved, they got about $5 saved up.
Yeah.
But they're giving money to the church, everyone. And I've been there, because I would tithe before I pay my bills. Because I've been taught
the chance to talk to believers about this, or is there a certain kind of wall that's always created when a believer talks to a non-believer?
I just really stopped thinking about what am I going to do as far as that. I've talked to a few, and you know, when you're stuck in that mindset that you're supposed to tithe, they're not going to stop, because they literally think they would be cursed if they stop tithing. They literally believe that they give their money, they're going to be blessed. They're going to heaven. They're going to have all those, you know, things with heaven. So it's very hard trying to talk to a believer when it comes to their doctrination. It's just very hard. I mean, they're not going to do it. So I don't care what a person give their money to, but pastors need to stop lying to the people. At least point out, if you believe that book, show me one scripture that says you're supposed to give money to the church. And it's not there. It's nowhere in there. Jesus never took up a plate. The 12 disciples never passed the plate around to give up money. You know, it's not there. If Jesus is your God, it's not there. So where do you get that stuff from? So you have to study history to know where the money part came with the Roman Catholic Church. And then even in the United States, they really didn't start taking money up until the 50s. That wasn't a thing in the past. You know, it started with Oral Roberts. Yeah, Oral Roberts started doing that stuff in the 50s. And then it just has, you know, grown, you know, tremendously.
There is so much about Christianity that's like very recent, but people make it seem like this is the way it's been for 2,000 years. Like,
right.
Original Christianity, and Jesus was like, be poor and give your money away, and rich people can't go to heaven. And now it's like Christianity is the religion of the rich people, which doesn't make sense. But in your own personal life, are you the outsider, the one non-believer, and how is it like dealing with your family, and if you still have friends who were friends of yours when you did believe and now you're not?
For a good minute now, I was in the closet about my religion, and then I just got so frustrated with it. So, but my family, they know that I don't believe this stuff, and it was a shock to them, because you know, I was out there, you know, in the pulpit and in different ministries and school. And so it was a shock for some of them. But they know all my life I've been the outsider. So I really don't care what other people say about me. So we're pretty cool, because we send, you know, my brothers and sisters, we communicate via text every day. And some of the stuff we'd be sending out, one of my sisters is a first lady, you know, her husband is a pastor. And the text we'd be going back and forth is so hilarious to me. You know, they're all pro, and then I'm against it. And so we're just going back, sending out different memes and, you know, jokes and so forth and so on. So they're going to stand their ground, and I'm going to stand my ground. So that's cool. But one thing that I would not do, because I do work with a lot of seniors, and have been for a while, is that I do not want to disrupt their world and let them know that I'm a non-believer. I did that with a couple of my seniors, and they were literally worried to death that I was going to go to hell. And they were more worried about me going to hell for being a non-believer. So from that, I don't even tell them that I don't believe anymore, because I don't want them worrying about me. They just was losing sleep and so forth and so on. So I don't even tell seniors. But anybody else, I have no problem with. Everybody else knows. Everybody else knows. And I have a lot of senior friends, a whole lot of senior friends.
I was thinking, yeah,
70s, 80s, and 90s, that type of seniors. So
there are a lot of people who are like, if they're coming out as atheists, you're like, yeah, I'm going to tell my grandmother, or, you know, tell my grandparents, like people who have been in it their whole lives. And I don't even know if there's a way to communicate what a non-believer is, because I don't even know if they're aware that they exist, or if they do, they're like, you know, they're kind of like, oh, they're angry at God type thing.
I did not have that experience. Everyone says, so something must have happened. She had a bad experience in church and she left. That was not my case. And that's not the case with most people. It isn't. It's just that from what I've talking to non-believers, they started reading their Bible. And if people start reading their Bible, I mean, you will become a non-believer. I mean, if you just really start reading it.
Well, one thing church is very good at is it attaching itself to things that it may or may not have been involved with. The Black church is always very much attached to like the civil rights movement. Do you consider it like still a net good, bad for the community?
I think when you're talking about the civil rights movement and the Black church, a lot of those leaders in the civil rights movement were non-believers. But the church was a place that they can go and gather together. That was the only safe haven they had laws in this country, even in the 50s and 60s, that said that if 2 or more Black folks got together, they could be locked up. But the church was a sanctuary where you can have a gathering of Black people together. So that's the reason why they use the church as the gathering place for the civil rights movement. Now, I would like to point out Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr. He is one of the most famous preachers worldwide. He graduated, got his doctorate in theology from Boston University. He has his theology degree. Dr. King was a Baptist minister, but he was not a Christian. And you can Google his thesis from Boston University, and in his writings, he has come to conclusion by his studies that all this religious stuff was all allegory. It was not actually true. He got his teachings from Gandhi, and Gandhi didn't believe in God neither. But they could not tell them that they didn't believe in Christianity. You would never see any of Dr. King's, up there preaching Jesus and stuff like that. He's preaching social events. So a lot of people, contrary to what they believe in the Black church, were non-believers.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of mainstream people are going to bring that up, because they do, like, Martin Luther King is fused to the Christian church. And maybe it's like politicians. Like, I don't think 30 years ago politicians were like, I'm a Christian and then I'm a Democrat Republican. But now it seems to be like it has to be an important part of someone. And people always kind of mischaracterize Martin Luther King, like saying, oh, he wouldn't kneel at a football game. And like, you don't know much about this guy, dude.
Right.
You got like 2 quotes and you're done.
Right.
You're finished. But is there, I don't know, is there like an alternative, because the church is just such a big part, it's always associated with Black community, to escape, or at least have an option, because it doesn't seem like people are like, people think, oh, you're Black, oh, of course you're religious. Like, there's an assumption. Like, how do you get past, I guess, the assumption, and then how do you find, I guess, community once that community is not available to you the way it used to be?
I'm beginning to believe that a lot of people, not just African Americans and Black people, who go to church on a weekly basis, I don't believe they all are believers. I think a lot of them just go there for community, for social. I mean, in the churches, you have someone that can babysit your kids. You get fed. I mean, you get entertained. There's a lot of people I don't believe it leaves in that stuff that's in the church. It's just something to do, something for time, for community, for social events. So I don't believe everybody in the Black community actually believe, but to come out, that's a big, big thing. I know people who has come out personally and has lost their jobs, their marriages done broke up because they no longer believe. So they stay in the closet. Just at my gym, I didn't know there were so many Black nonbelievers in the gym, in my gym, and they just don't believe that stuff. They just don't believe. And then you look at the younger people, they don't believe that stuff, but they're forced to go with the program just to get by, just to get through. I don't know if you're familiar with what's called the Clergy Project, Zach?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so you've got preachers, this project that's in this clergy, there's hundreds of preachers who know this stuff isn't true, but they don't know how to escape. So it's a support group for them to try to figure out, how do I get out of there? But they get up and preach every Sunday and don't believe it. These big pastors, they don't believe that stuff, but it's a business. It's a money-making business.
You mentioned that you used to go to church even after you decided you didn't believe anymore. So what do you do with your Sundays now?
Sometime I'm at the gym, some sleeping. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know. Things happen, with my business. I spend a lot of my weekends doing paperwork and stuff of that nature. I go out, I hang out with friends after church hours. So I'm pretty busy. It's just I don't have that segment of time from 10 to 1 is when I was in church, 10 to 1, 2, and then after church we would go eat. So I'm more productive now. Now that I've left the church, my life is so much better. I have free time. I'm not there multiple days of the week. I've got more money that I can give to people for use, real actual use. I'm just free to be free. And when you're in the religious environment, you can't think for yourself. Everything is based on this. You're constrained. And I've never been so free with what I can do with my life now that I'm out of the cult. That I'm out of the indoctrination. And when I talk to a lot of non-believers, they say the same thing. I mean, I did not know I can be free like this. I'm not bound. I'm not in chains anymore. I can use my brain, It's just there's so many advantages, and it's just sort of hard to try to explain to people that are still into religion that people don't know they're in a cult when they're in it. And once they get out of it, their eyes open, and there's it's just amazing. One thing, Zach, when going back to this money, I used to have a securities license and set up mutual funds. And we used to have disclaimers that said, you vest this money, it's not promised that, nothing is guaranteed. And when it comes to the pastors and with this prosperity ministry and tithing, and they're telling you that if you give your money, then you're going to be blessed. God's going to, I've even heard pastors say you're going to get your new car, a new home, or whatever. And I think they should be held accountable for what comes out of that pulpit. Because had I said that when I was in the securities industry, they would have locked me up 10 years, $250,000 fine, and locked me up in prison. And when pastors taking people's money and saying that when you give me this money, God's going to bless you, you're going to get A, B, and C, and D, they should be held accountable for that lie, because people actually should believe them when they say those types of make those types of claims.
Yeah, it's weird that it's like lying is bad, but like when you're lying for your religion, or if you're lying for the guy who they're trying to get into the Supreme Court, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's weird if it's in this I don't know, this service of this supposed greater good that really isn't proven, but it's given all this cachet in the culture. There's so much to it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Roman Catholic Church with, this child molestation been going on for centuries. And this last case that came out, or, with all these, I don't know if you read it, but it's just horrific things that is going on. And had that been another industry or something, you would have people out in the street marching and protesting and shutting that corporation down. But because it's the church, they get to pass, they don't have to, be held accountable for all those things they have done to people. And it's just the church and religion can get away with stuff where other industries cannot.
Yeah, if we can, quote unquote, ban Muslims from coming into our country, I think we might need to ban Catholics from being Supreme Court justices for a little while. Because I feel like there's a little bit of that, hey, I'm this perfect person because I'm Catholic, and then I'm doing this bad stuff, but because you don't have proof, then it's not a thing. And it is taken on this other level. I don't know how to bridge that gap.
We need to separate religion and state, separation church and state government. We definitely need to get out of that. And that whole thing came up in the 80s with Ronald Reagan and stuff, where we started getting to Jerry Falwell and this religion and all that kind of stuff. We need, because it's making this country go to pot.
I guess political leaders like to just lean on that crutch of religion and not realize what it actually costs them, that it's not good for them. And it's not good. Like there are some Christian leaders who are like, yeah, religion and politics bad. But for the most part, it's like, no, we kind of like the power. And we had this, national prayer breakfast and there's all this interfaith stuff, and no member of Congress can admit that they're a non-believer. I think there's like one non-believer in Congress. Like maybe when it comes to state stuff, it's totally different. But I did want to ask, before we call it a night, so what was the first Black Nonbelievers cruise like, and are you looking forward to the 2018 version?
It was awesome. I want to show you my t-shirt we had last year. It was my first cruise, actually the first cruise I had, but I don't know if you can see that or not. But it was the first cruise. I don't know, I guess it's 30-something people. We had speakers of various types, workshops. Most of the time wasn't spent in the workshops. You had more time to enjoy the cruise. But it was just a great gathering of people to get together who are non-believers. It was awesome. I do encourage everybody, if they can attend one, to go, because you meet some really great people. And you vacation and have a terrific time. So it was good. I got to meet some people there who had written books and was activists in different types of areas. And so it was great. I recommend anybody that can go to do the Black Nonbelievers cruise. It will be our second one this year. It's the day after Thanksgiving. We'll be sailing. So yeah, great. It was great.
Well, I'll include a link to that. So how long has your love affair with Teddy Pendergrass been, and how important is it to your life?
My life would be non-existent without Teddy Pendergrass. He was my God. We everybody who knows me know that I love Teddy Pendergrass. And, it was, every week I listen to something by Teddy Pendergrass, and it's just motivational type of stuff. So, everybody, I'm just going to shout out for Teddy. My favorite song, if you're ever on Jeopardy and they said, wake up everybody, that's my favorite song in the world. And so you will win if you're able to answer that question. What is Delissa McAdoo's favorite song? And it's Wake Up Everybody, because there's so much into that particular song about just being, we're in this area, everybody's saying they're awake or woke. And it's just so much of politics and, the things that was going on. That song came out in 1973. And it's very apropos for today's climate, just to listen to the lyrics to that song. So it was Teddy, and it was also Michael Jordan. So, but I let Michael go.
Now, usually at the end, I ask my guest to tell a joke, and you said you weren't really much of a joke person. So is there another secret talent or passion or hobby that you have that maybe people don't know about you?
Well, I don't have any secrets. I'm very nerdy. I mean, I'm really a nerd. I'm very square. I talk junk. I like to debate. Debate. Oh, not necessarily. I just like to have conversations with people. I don't really like to debate because everybody has an opinion on things. But I study. I love history. I like researching. I love senior citizens. I truly love senior citizens. I mean, I learned so much from my seniors. It's unbelievable. They think they're helping. I'm helping them. They're helping me. I've learned so much history, wisdom from seniors. And like I said before, once a month, I'm taking some seniors out for something. And because family members don't go see them, they don't spend time with them. It's a shame that in this country that the seniors are thrown away. Whereas you can look at the Japanese culture, they value their seniors, and we just don't in this country. I mean, I can just tell you so many horror stories about what's going on with seniors in this country. It'll bring you to tears about how we just discard our most vulnerable people. Just because, So, I visit nursing homes, I visit assisted living centers, and the poverty, uh, the shame. I mean, I've gone to people's houses and they don't even have running water. That's just how bad it is in this country, the richest country in the world. And they have a lot of pride, and they don't let you know that they're struggling. And so that's what my passion is. And anybody out there, if you've got some time where you can spend with some seniors, I encourage you to do that. Yeah, I have a few of my seniors that if I don't call them the first week of the month, there's a few of them I have to call each month just to check in on them. And if I don't call them, they're calling, they curse me out. Miss Delissa, why you didn't call me? You're supposed to call me. Miss Jones, I'm sorry, I've been so busy. That's because they're lonely, and they just need somebody to come and talk to them.
Yeah, I think it depends on relationships. I think it's varied between a lot of people, but definitely grandmother on my wife's side. Anytime I talk to her, even though she can't stay on the phone for more than 2 minutes, it's important to check in. That is an important thing to do.
Correct.
Because some people don't text or Facebook or Twitter or do email. You do have to actually talk to them on the phone. So it's a good thing to do, to kind of check in and say, hi, I'm here. Just let people know that. So is there anywhere where people can find you online? I mean, I know you're not,
The best way to contact with me is through my email address is Delissa Mac. Delissa spelled like Melissa. DELISSA MAC @AOL.com. Yes, I do have an AOL account. Old people, I was told, are the only ones that still use AOL account. So that's me. You can find me there. Shoot me a question. I do want people to help me out because I want to figure out how I can educate the mass, and knowing that there's nowhere in the Bible that says you're supposed to give your money to the church. So I need some ideas. How do I approach the church? What would be the best avenue? And I'm not trying to beat up the church. I just want to help the people that's in there to get out of that prosperity ministry and having that guilt of I was not able. I mean, I'm going to share this one story with you. I know in my hometown, you got all these women in the church that support in the church. There was one a member of the church who would go and steal suits for the pastor. Got caught stealing suits for him to wear to church. That's just how bad it is in the church. And I have a lot of first lady friends, and they tell me about all the stuff that women bring their husband because they think they're supposed to do that for the pastor. And they will fight you if, oh, no, I'm doing it for the man of God and these types of things. That's just how brainwashed we are. I mean, women would do more for their pastor than they would do for their husband or their children.
It's got this higher rating system, which is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Delissa, thank you very much for being on the show. It's great.
Thank you, Zach. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to go to a Black Nonbelievers because I hadn't had Mandisa on. I wanted to be there, and I wanted to actually interact with people in real life, which is a crazy and wild idea for me. But it was great, and you're a great speaker, and I'm glad. I mean, clearly you've been doing it for a while, but it's great to have you on. And I guess that's all we got for now. I feel like we could talk for a lot longer, but
I appreciate it. Yeah, let's do this. Let's do it again, and maybe we can have Mandisa and some others from the group. We can do like a multi type of thing, and just throw out some ideas on another topic. I've got so much other things that we can talk about, but finances and money is my thing right now. So
yeah, I guarantee you would. So, well, thanks again for being on.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks for having me.